Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Scared Shitless. This is a horror retrospective, the show that analyzes horror media like a narcissistic psychopath looking at a woman's head in a refrigerator. For anyone interested, we are going to be spoiling the movie today. I'm Ryan and I am joined by Ali,
How you doing, guys?
Al,
Hey.
and Jamie.
Hello.
And today we are going to be looking at none other than the 2000 horror drama movie American Psycho, as displayed nicely here. And now we're finished with the display.
He owns the Blu-ray.
So American Psycho is based on the novel of the same name by Bret Easton Ellis. The screenplay was written by Mary Harron and Guinevere Turner and directed by Mary Harron. The film stars Christian Bale, Jared Leto, Justin Theroux, Reese Witherspoon, Cara Seymour, Josh Lucas, Matt Ross, and Willem Dafoe. American Psycho follows Patrick Bateman, a wealthy psychopath investment banking executive in Manhattan during the 80s. Who delves deeper into his violent and hedonistic lifestyle. So, Jamie, you've never seen this film before. The rest of us had. What was your general thoughts on it?
I really liked it. I thought Christian Bale was absolutely incredible. I thought the story was really interesting. I think it had a lot of commentary points that were really interesting, and it was definitely the biggest mindfuck movie I've watched since Inception.
Ali, what were
So
your
that's
thoughts?
my take on it so far.
Fair enough.
What was my thoughts? Well, at least we now know why Christian Bale was cast as this guy. Well, one of the reasons anyway. Awesome film, great double personality that he had throughout the whole film. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and what a twist at the end.
For anyone who may be listening and not actual watching, when Ali says this guy, he is referring to Batman, as he's wearing a Batman t-shirt. He's not calling Christian Bale a psychopath and saying that's why he got the role of Patrick Bateman. Just thought I would clear that up before Christian Bale actually comes after Ali and just beats the shit out of him. Al, what were your thoughts on American
what a day
Psycho?
that would be. What a day that would be.
What a day that you get your ass handed to you by Christian Bale.
I
Totally.
would be interested in seeing that. I've got to say,
We
I would.
sell tickets to that one.
If anyone else wants to see Batman beat up Ali, let us know in the comments section. So, I think
Be even funnier with him dressed as he is today. Batman hat, Batman t-shirt, getting the shit kicked out of him by a Batman, just crying on the ground. Why, Batman? Why?
So,
Well,
okay.
anyway.
I would go Joker. I would laugh.
Nah, you wouldn't. Anyway, Al.
Yeah, I really like this film. I've seen it probably 4 or 5 times before now. And every time there's bits in it, I forget some of the twists that now and again. Certain bits are obviously really, really quite memorable. But no, it's quite a good. I wouldn't necessarily call it a horror or more of a psychological thriller. But yeah, I like it.
The movie in general and the book, obviously. I mean, and we're going to just refer to the movie here, but obviously I'm referring to the book as well for the most part. Is a scathing indictment of 1980s yuppie culture. I mean, the whole thing is about narcissism,
Wall Street
and
greed.
Greed and perception, and everybody just being absolutely fake. And there are points throughout the entire movie that really lay the groundwork for that, like them all being completely shallow and interchangeable. And I actually know for a fact that in some cases this movie is deemed like this huge success, and a lot of people think of it as like this really feminist movie as well. Like surprisingly, you know, watching it, you maybe don't think of it, but if you look at all the male characters in this film, every single one of them is super shallow. And then when you look at the female characters, they're actually saying something for the most part. Like something that none of the guys give a fuck about. The guys are just want to make money and do cocaine and worry about what restaurants they're going to. And the female characters don't give a shit about that. Like if you notice, the only two characters in the entire movie that don't give a shit about Patrick Bateman's job or anything are the two prostitutes. They just don't care. It's not, you know, they're not in that world.
And Patrick Bateman was more interested in telling people where he worked actually than what he did.
100%.
You know, he's like, oh, I work at the what's the company called again? But you know, he told them it's like I work at this place on Wall Street. He didn't tell them what he did. It was just like,
That's because he doesn't do anything. He's married to the owner's daughter, or he's engaged to the owner's daughter. That's the only reason he's a VP.
All you see him do is critique his like assistant's outfit and sit on the phone making reservations, or be really awkward when a detective comes. You know, he just sits there looking like he's killed a bunch of people.
Yeah,
he does that very well.
He definitely doesn't work like you would consider work. You know, he shows up when he wants. He makes reservations, and he sits listening to his tape player most of the time. Which, by the way, brings me into the music in this movie. The soundtrack is fantastic.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and it really plays a big part in it. Now, it generally does. Very good film, very good soundtrack, and the soundtrack works. It feels like the 80s, like, and it is. I mean, there's one case in particular where the music is very much linked in his psychotic acts, which we'll get to. But that is one of the best cases, at least in my memory, of a movie using music so well. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I sat and watched this with my missus, and even she commented on it, just like partway through the film. She's like, "The music in this is awesome. Yeah, it's so good."
Yeah,
I do think it makes it. It really does set the scene. Like even the music they have playing, the background music that they have playing in restaurants, bars, and stuff like that. It's class. It's all really good.
It's very good.
On the first, you know, I've only seen it once. And I did notice the music as being good, but honestly, I wouldn't be able to talk about it because I was too busy watching the film.
Yeah,
you know.
The music is incredible, but it fits in so well. Like it doesn't pull you out of the film.
I mean, I think you guys are able to notice this possibly because there's so much going on in this movie.
There is.
You know, the soundtrack was complimentary because it didn't detract from watching the movie.
Yeah, it did pull you out.
You know, it's great.
Well, something else was what he mentioned before we get to the kills, because obviously we always get to the kills sooner or later. But
they all had the same business card, and what the fuck were they all?
Okay, that's not what I was going to talk about. But screw it, let's talk about the business card scene. So, what's your thoughts on that scene, Jamie?
Oh, I think that was just fitting right into their total yuppie culture thing. You know, they're all trying to one up each other for no other reason than I've got the sleekest business card, you know. And Patrick, this was really getting to him because he was wanting to one up everyone. You know, he wanted to fit in.
There sweating. I mean, that shows you how much it means that he's sweating, and it literally put him into a murderous rage.
And then Paul Allen comes in and drops the bomb with his card.
Yeah, he's like
essentially sealing his own fate.
Colouring.
His eggshell.
Yeah. So honestly, but what I was going to talk about was the opening scene and like our intro to Patrick Bateman.
Oh, the monologues.
Well, at first you see him out for dinner with his friends, and it seems kind of normal. He tells, you know, he actually seems like a nice guy. He says, oh, maybe, you know, the guy makes a comment about Jewish people. I think, was it Jewish people? And he's like, oh, you shouldn't refer to them like that. You know, just don't like, just don't. And you're like, oh, yeah, he seems all right. And then the next scene, they're in the bar, and the barmaid turns around and he's like, I want to stab you a bunch of times and play with your blood. And then it goes to his home, and he does his monologue about his morning routine and everything else. And he's pulling off his face mask as he says, like, his, essentially there's nothing behind his mask, and it's I think that is one of the best character introductions, certainly that I can think of. So, like, period. I can't think of a film that does a villain intro better than that.
I think it's because generally villains, they're introduced secondary to other characters, whereas he's the villain and he's the main character.
Yes.
And I think because of that, and you're looking through they're trying to show you the world through his eyes, and they actually do at some points.
They do. They very much
do. So yeah, I think, I can't think of anything that would come close to sort of a better sort of introduction of your villain.
Ali, is there anything you can think of?
No, I liked how the introduction was. Everybody else was going around their normal life, chatting amongst themselves, and it was almost as if, or at least this was the perspective that I got from him, while he was introducing each other character. It was almost as if he was picking targets. I don't know if anybody else got that vibe, targets of who he could potentially knock off.
I don't think it's just that people he could knock off, but I think as a genuine psychopath, everyone he meets, he does size up. And it maybe not be, can I kill this person? It might be, how can I use this person? It might just be, him looking at the world for what can I.
He's just
get
a
out
proper
of this?
sociopath. It's like, how can this person benefit me?
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but
something.
It wasn't just him that was doing that.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
yeah.
It was all of them. Yeah, 100%. But okay, let's discuss the kills. So kills were hard to count in this film, by the way. I've never counted I've seen this film a bunch of times. I've never counted the kills in it before. So this is the first time for this show. And I had to make the decision that I'm only counting, like, a lot of kills happen off screen. So I'm going to count implied kills, but I'm only counting implied kills for people we actually saw live. Because there's one scene in particular where someone's running through the house and they find a bunch of dead bodies.
There's a room full of bodies, yeah.
And like, fuck that. I'm just not doing
that.
So,
he claimed himself on the phone to his lawyer when he was having his psychopathic breakdown.
He claimed that he killed somewhere
40,
between 20 and 40 people. I've killed 20 people. Oh man, maybe 40. But
a lot of people had to die.
The number I came up with was 17. Not 17, that's a lie. 13. Apologies. So the first one was a woman on the street who he walks up to, kind of smiles at, they cross the road together. And that's all we see. But then the next scene, he's at the dry cleaners and he's shouting at them because they can't get the stains out of sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And someone else comes in and the stains are, it's red sheets. And she's like, what's that? And I think he tells her it's like wine or something.
Cranberry juice.
Cranberry juice.
Yeah.
But I think that's fair to count as a kill. I think it's
yeah.
I think he killed her, yeah.
Yeah. So next we have the homeless man and his dog, who he stabs and stomps to death.
That is the hardest kill to watch in this film, is him stomping that dog to death. It's fucking it's fucking brutal.
Yeah, it's it
like,
is pretty brutal, especially
kill
if
all
you're
the people you want.
A lot of people are quite sensitive to animal deaths in movies, so if you are, this is going to be a tough one for you.
I mean, there's loads of movies that even just a dog will get shot or something like that, and even that gets quite a response from an audience and stuff like that. Like if you're sitting in the cinema and a dog gets shot and something like that, or any dog dies for anything, you can almost feel it go through the room, and you can hear people go, "Oh." So to have somebody stamping a dog to death, that's like, it's a proper statement. They want you to fucking hate this man.
Next, we had Paul Allen, played by Jared Leto, who is axe murdered to the song "It's Hip to Be Square." Jamie, what was your thoughts on this one?
I loved the build up to this. He was getting him drunk at the bar, right? I was like, what's going on? What's going on here? And then the music goes on, and they're suddenly back at the apartment, and the guy's like on the couch, fucking absolutely steaming, and he puts on this like
A raincoat.
What was it like? It looked like a fishmonger's overall or something.
It's a see-through raincoat that he puts on. Yeah.
Yeah, so he put on that, and then fucking just starts wailing on him.
Yeah, brutally axe murders him.
Yeah, no, that was pretty unexpected. You got. I mean, if you didn't get the fact that he was a brutal psycho when he killed a homeless person and the dog, then yeah, there you go. You know what film you're in.
It's just the bit where he goes to go, he's like, "Hey, Paul," and he turns around. And it's it's fucking hell.
Did any of you guys get there was at some points in this movie, I sort of felt like I was just getting an image of like Jim Carrey as the Mask. Anybody else get that? Like at some points?
Some of the facial expressions, I could see where you're coming from with that.
I didn't get that, which I'm quite grateful for. I think that would have brought me out in the movie.
No.
And next time when he's doing some of his like inflections when he's talking in his speeches and stuff, you're just like, that's the Mask, man.
So after Paul Allen, we had the model who he meets at the club, who, when she asks him what he does, he tells her he does murders and executions. And she's clearly not listening, and she just hears mergers and acquisitions, and she's like, "Do you like it?" And but he takes her home, or they get in a cab together, and that's all we see. We don't see her death, but then later on, we do see her head in the fridge. 100%, it is her head when he gets the sorbet out the fridge to give to his assistant. Next, the girl he went to college with, he is having the threesome with her and the prostitute, and under the covers, I believe he bites her throat out or something. We just see lots of blood start to happen. The prostitute runs away, who he then follows with a chainsaw.
I love this stuff. I absolutely love this.
So yeah, she tries to get down the stairs, and he's chasing after her, bollock naked, with nothing but his sneakers on and a chainsaw, and then he starts aiming it down the stairs at her, and just lets go, and we see it has impaled her.
It's an impressive shot, if nothing else.
Yes.
It stayed on it for ages. I had to check to see if the movie was no.
If she had just stayed in one area of the stairs for a couple more seconds, she might have been okay.
Was anyone else sort of pissing themselves in that scene?
Yeah, that was very funny.
It is a funny film. You know, there is some serious.
It's the fact that he's running through an apartment block.
Yeah,
bollock naked with a chainsaw. Nobody gives a fuck. Zero fucks.
Just like it happens.
So next we have the woman at the cash line. He is trying to feed the cat to the cash line, and she's like, "Hey, don't do that." So he shoots her, which then leads to a shootout with the cops, where 4 cops die due to being shot and an explosion.
Bullets.
Yes,
yeah,
bullets in general. Bullets. And then the last 2 deaths of the movie, we have the front desk security guy at the wrong building that he went into. I mean, that shows you how much he knows where he works. He goes into the wrong building. The guy is like, "Hey, Mr. Smith," shoots him. And then the janitor comes, so he goes back around the revolving door and shoots him.
Even the people on the door don't know who these people are, because they're all just fucking cut out of one cookie sheet.
And that is the 13 deaths. So, Jamie.
And none of them happened.
Which was your favourite?
Oh, which was my favourite? Oh, I don't know. I'd never actually thought of a favourite death. Probably the axe one, or the chainsaw one, actually. No, the axe one. No,
Okay.
I like the axe.
Paul Allen with the axe. It's like Mr. Mustard with the candlestick in the library. Yeah. Al, which was your favourite of the deaths in this one?
I usually like to go for one that's not the obvious one, but it's that one. It's the best one. Is his acting, bouncing around the room to "It's Hip to Be Square," and just the time he takes putting on his wee raincoat and everything like that. It's just, it has to be that one.
And I mean, I agree. This is my favorite as well. I really like him, like trying to explain the song "It's Hip to Be Square" to Paul Allen before he murders him, and he's like, it's about the joys of conformity. And if you note, like when he talks later on about Whitney Houston songs, he's talking about her conforming as well. When he talks about I forgot the other band, he talks about their music. Genesis. And again, it's about them becoming more mainstream. And it's because that's something he really values. Because as he says earlier in the film to his fiancée, played by Reese Witherspoon, he wants to fit in. So conformity is very important to him. Despite being this like major, non-conformist in every other way, he needs to appear like, everyone else. And I just think it's a nice touch. And then, brutal axe murder and him covered in blood and just shouting fucking reservations at Dorsia now, you fucking bastard. And it's like,
blood all over his face.
Yes. So Ali, which was your favorite? I feel like I
Chainsaw.
know. That's what I thought.
Chainsaw, 100%.
Done with that. So yeah, I assumed that was going to be your favorite, and that is a good death. That's probably got to be the second best death. So okay, we do know that Patrick Bateman is a very unreliable narrator, and we see this at multiple points throughout the movie. One point in particular being the ATM machine saying "Feed me a stray cat," and he literally we see those words come up on the ATM machine. Obviously, we know those words were not on the ATM machine. And I think there are
you're making assumptions here.
I think there are other points as well that we know definitely didn't happen. Like I think the shootout, like he's shooting and there's a big ass explosion, and he actually looks at it like, what? And then he looks at his gun, and like he's mental, and he didn't expect that to happen. So yeah, I'm not.
I mean that was got to be some of my evidence for saying a lot of this didn't happen. Like that fucking the big explode. It's not a film that's got a big what am I trying to say here? It's not a special effects film, so they only put it in if there was a reason to stick it in, I reckon. And I think the reason they put it in was to illustrate that a lot of the shit didn't happen.
I also think
psychologically ill.
I think every time he tells someone that he killed people, that didn't happen. A lot of the times he says something to someone, but they're maybe turned around or they just don't acknowledge it. So I'm not sure he's actually saying it a lot of the time.
What about that scene where he was like dragging the bag that clearly had a fucking body in it, and the person
a trail of blood, and the boy's just sitting there, just like.
It's like, oh, where'd you get the bag? He's like, oh, Jean-Paul Gaultier. Like, what? That's what you care about, where the bag came from, rather than the fact of the fucking bloody blood.
But actually, when it cuts to outside, you can see through into the lobby, and there isn't a trail of blood anymore. So I don't know if that's meant to be.
Oh, I'm going to
sort of a hint to that or not, or if it's just a little bit of inconsistency.
So okay, we also have the apartment, Paul Allen's apartment, where we had all these corpses around.
I quite liked with that when he went to the viewings and stuff like that, they actually they almost quite strongly hinted that she fucking covered it up.
100%.
It's like, well, I'm going to lose business if there's been a kill house in years. So
I think that's evidence that he actually did do it, because she was acting like something was up.
And she looks like she was petrified of him, and she's giving them I know what you did.
Yeah,
but
you need to leave.
You need to get the fuck out.
Yeah, because I'm going to sell this shit.
Is that what that scene was about? I was trying to figure out what was going on there.
Yeah.
It certainly appears like he's gone and they've covered up. Like there's paint and stuff lying about. They've painted over everything. They've got rid of the bodies. They're covering up because it's a penthouse apartment. in Manhattan.
Yeah,
You know, how much is that
which
worth?
is nicer than
It's-
his, apparently.
Yes, because it looks over the park. The scene where he goes into Paul's apartment to make it look like he's, you know, and he's like, I realize it's you know, fear runs over me because I realize that his apartment's overlooking the park, and it's clearly more expensive than mine. You know, like, okay. So, but right, Ali,
Yo,
how much of these murders actually happened, if any?
well, this is what the twist is at the end, because the way that we end it, did it happen or did it not?
That's
what
the
we're
big
asking
question
you.
I just asked you, mate.
Yeah.
Answer.
I want to say they did, but we never meet his father. So I'm going to assume his father is obviously a big wig in New York and quite well known. And I'm going to say his father, behind closed doors, covered it all up to protect his son. Quite possibly, the lawyer knew about his psychotic break, and so did his father, and they covered the whole thing up.
Well, you have done an incredible job at jumping to conclusions. Al,
Thank you.
what's your thoughts? How much of this happened?
I don't think any of it happened. I think it's
Don't
all in
think
his
any
head.
of it.
I think he's just. I think he's been living out. All he does when he's not going out and whining, dining, snorting with his yuppie pals is he sits in his office all day, daydreaming about what he wishes he was doing to them, and his mind's so cracked that he now can't tell what's been his daydreams he's been playing out in his head, and what's
What
actually been
reality
happening.
is and what isn't.
Jamie, same question.
Yeah, I think that's the conclusion that I drew from it. Like none of the murders happened. He was, so interested in conforming with, what, the whole fitting in montage. Like you see the extents he went to make himself look good and fit in and conform to all of these standards that the yuppies like. And I think it's just all in his head. He wants to conform, but at the same time he wants to be different, and these fantasies allow him to be different, and that's why he's got that. I believe that the notebook thing that his assistant found was real, and these are just iterations of all the physical manifestations of all the fantasies that he wishes he could carry out, but he didn't.
I personally disagree with all of yous. Ali, I certainly don't think his dad that we haven't seen is covering it up, because there is zero evidence whatsoever to support that. And I don't think it was all in his head. I think lots of it was in his head. Like the shootout with the police, I think was in his head. But I think I think him shooting the woman at the cash line that started that actually happened. I think she came up and he shot her and ran away. I don't think he then had a shootout with the police. I think this is his head kind of going into overdrive, imagining it. I think he essentially exaggerates real events. I think we see real things, but then they're massively blown out of proportion by him. So I think he did maybe take a body out in the whatever super fancy overnight bag, and Lewis actually came to him outside and be like, "Oh, what bag is that?" But I think the trail of blood and everything is was in his head. I think, the chainsaw murder, I don't think that happened. I think he did kill her, but he's like, what would be cooler? And he fantasizes about, imagine dropping this chainsaw down and killing her.
Then you've also got the
sense.
Paul Allen one that you're talking about with the bag, because that was Paul Allen's body that he was taking out. But then you've got the lawyer. Oh, I mean, if you're trusting what the lawyer says, though, you've got the lawyer saying that he's met him since.
I don't think he killed Paul Allen. I think Paul Allen is a fictional one. I think Paul Allen was in London, and he kind of would have loved to have killed Paul Allen. I think he did, however, rock up to Paul Allen's apartment with Paul Allen not being there. I think he genuinely believed he killed Paul Allen. So why not go and use Paul Allen's apartment for your own wee murder then? I think the lawyer potentially did have dinner with Paul Allen, and I think that Willem Dafoe's character, the detective, is entirely in Patrick Bateman's head. I don't think
he's a totally unrealistic character. There's so many things about him that were just weird.
So I do think he essentially killed all the girls, because at the start of the movie, when we've got him as close to, before complete psychosis as possible, he actually says his nocturnal, his murderous nocturnal self is slipping over and is like bleeding into his day. So I think
I just think that's a development of his psychopathy, man. Like, honestly, I don't see how you can say that, I think this bit was really this bit. I don't know. I just don't see.
I don't think it's as simple as, especially when you're dealing with someone who suffers from delusions, that it's all fake. I think it's just a tool of.
I think it's just a tool of the movie to, illustrate their point that, these people on this sort of level in this group, they don't, he fantasizes about this. They don't understand the difference between right and wrong.
Well, what I can say, which gives me an added advantage over all of you, is I've read the book, and the book goes into far more detail, and there are other scenes in the book that let us know that he is in fact actually a killer, 100%. But we still get a lot of his psychosis, so a lot of the book still doesn't happen. So
we're talking about the movies. You can't cheat by quoting the book.
What I am saying is, in the book, it's very clear some of it's true and some of it's not.
Yeah.
Because we're told it through this really unreliable perspective. So it would make sense that the movie's the same. However, what I think is really nice is you can watch the movie and you can come to your own conclusions. You can decide, maybe he done this and not that. You can decide maybe he didn't do any of it and he's just completely.
I was talking about this in the car the other day.
Yeah.
I think it was with your brother, and we were talking about the fact that you could argue about this film for weeks.
Yeah.
There's so many parts that you could spend time arguing. Well, I think this means this. Well, I think that scene actually means this happened, and you could go back and forward forever because it. And I like that. I like films that leave things open. I don't like films that just tie up everything in a nice little bow. I like ones that leave you thinking and arguing.
Like, there is evidence both ways. Like that scene in the apartment where he goes in and they're painting it and getting ready to sell it. That is very clearly hinting that she found a bunch of bodies here and covered it up because it is more important to, capitalist yuppie 1980s America. If
it wasn't for that scene, I would be absolutely locked in that you are wrong and that he has not killed a single person. But because that scene is the one sort of thing that essentially screws my argument over. And I have to acknowledge
they could have just been redecorating because they knew it was going to be getting sold to a young.
They could have, but her reaction was very suspect.
I mean, he was being creepy as fuck,
Well, I mean, maybe, it's possible. But again, that's the thing. It is open to interpretation. So if you haven't watched this movie and are, let us know what you think once you have. And if you have watched it, let us know what you think happened. So, Ali, how many stabs would you give American Psycho?
4.5.
4.5. Al, how many stabs?
4.5.
I didn't even thought about it. That's really good. 4.5's fair. It's a really good film.
Jamie.
Yeah, I'm on the 4.5 stab crew as well. This was a really, really good film and thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'd definitely watch it again.
4.5 stabs all around. It is. I think all of us agree.
Awesome.
It's 100%. It's a fantastic movie and a great way for us to kick off 2022.
Starting at high.
So
can only get worse from here.
Yeah. In fact, I believe it is about to get worse next week when we cover American Psycho 2. So we will see how that goes. What I do know, I have not seen it, but I do know Christian Bale is not in it, and it stars Mila Kunis and William Shatner. So let's see how Captain Kirk does in a horror sequel. But that's it from us this week, guys. So if you want more from Ali, you can go and find him on his channel. Link for it will be in the description. He makes videos on comic book stuff, professional wrestling stuff, and science fiction stuff. If you're interested in more content from Jamie, you can find the link to his channels in the description. He reacts to stuff and he does Harry Potter stuff also. If you want more from Al and myself, stay right here on Scared Shitless. We have a pretty decent list of content now, so we should have something for everyone. And we will see you next week. And like always, we will be back like any good killer for one last scare.